It started like any other lively episode of The View, a buzz in the studio, the usual hot topic energy, and the chemistry of the co-hosts sparking like flint. The audience was especially excited because the guest that morning was none other than Meghan Markle, Duchess of Sussex. Promoted all week as a deep and vulnerable conversation, fans expected compassion, understanding, and perhaps even a few light-hearted moments. What they got, however, was a moment of live television that would ignite social media within minutes. Meghan arrived in a soft lavender pantsuit, elegant yet reserved, clearly dressed to project grace. She was welcomed with applause, a few warm smiles, and a hug from Sarah Haynes. Sunny Hostin offered a compliment about Meghan's advocacy for women's issues. Everything felt supportive at first. Whoopi Goldberg, seated at the center, leaned back with her arms folded, watching closely. The interview began with easy questions: Meghan's motherhood journey, her work with Archewell, her recent documentary project. Meghan answered thoughtfully, often referring to her experiences with the media and how it impacted her mental health. But about 15 minutes in, things began to shift. The topic turned to Meghan and Prince Harry's ongoing battle with the British tabloid press and their attempts to reframe public narratives about their lives. Meghan described the intense scrutiny she faced, the false headlines, the racial undertones, the harassment. Her voice trembled ever so slightly when she recalled the early days of her pregnancy with Archie and how lonely she felt. The studio grew quiet. Whoopi then leaned forward. "You talk about the media a lot, Meghan," she said, her voice steady, "but don't you think there's a line between criticism and abuse? Not all of it is bullying. Some of it is just people's opinions." Meghan blinked, slightly taken aback. "It's not just opinions when it becomes relentless, targeted, and harmful. I think anyone, public figure or not, deserves a basic level of dignity." "I hear that," Whoopi nodded. "But you left the royal family, moved to California, signed with Netflix, did Oprah. You're a global brand now. You talk about wanting privacy, but you've done more media since leaving than when you were in it." The audience stirred. Some clapped. Meghan's expression tightened. "I think that's a misconception," Meghan replied, trying to keep her tone calm. "I never said I didn't want to be seen. I just didn't want to be hunted." "That's fair," Whoopi said, "but part of being in the public eye is scrutiny. Presidents get criticized. Athletes. Even me. We don't always like it, but we deal with it. That's life under the spotlight." There was a murmur from the panel. Sunny Hostin leaned in as if to redirect the tension, but Meghan spoke again, more firmly now. "There's a difference between scrutiny and cruelty, Whoopi. Between journalism and clickbait. When you're being dehumanized daily, especially as a woman of color, it's not just uncomfortable, it's traumatic." Whoopi's tone remained cool, but her words sharp. "But don't you think some people feel that you and Harry play both sides? That you criticize the system that made you famous while still benefiting from the attention?" That landed like a punch. Meghan's jaw tensed. For a moment, her composure cracked. "I didn't choose fame," she said, her voice softer now, trembling. "I fell in love. I married someone. And I was thrown into a machine that didn't care if I was okay. And now, I'm trying to use my voice, not to be famous, but to help people understand what I went through." There was a moment of silence. The cameras stayed on her face, and that's when the tears came. Not a dramatic outburst, but a single tear, trailing down her cheek. She tried to brush it away discreetly, but it was too late. The moment had happened. Live. Raw. Unscripted. Sunny reached across and placed a gentle hand on Meghan's arm. We appreciate your honesty, she said quickly, trying to steer the conversation back to safety. But Whoopi didn't flinch. I respect your struggle, Meghan, Whoopi said at last. But I also believe in holding space for accountability, and we've got to be careful we don't blur the line between being hurt and being criticized. Meghan looked down, gathering herself. A producer could be seen signaling from the side of the stage. They cut to commercial, but the tension in the studio lingered like smoke. What was meant to be a promotional appearance had become a national flashpoint. And the internet was just getting started. The moment the show cut to commercial, the studio shifted into a stunned silence. Meghan Markle sat quietly, dabbing her eyes with a tissue offered by Sarah Haynes. Whoopi Goldberg leaned back in her chair, her face expressionless, as if nothing had happened. Producers rushed the stage, whispering and signaling, trying to figure out how to proceed for the final segment. What they didn't know yet was that the real storm was already brewing outside the studio, on social media. By the time The View returned from the break, the hashtag #MeghanSwoopi had already begun trending worldwide. Clips of the exchange were circulating at light speed, some praising Whoopi for holding Meghan accountable, others accusing her of being unnecessarily harsh and lacking empathy. The daytime talk show had instantly become primetime drama. Back on set, the air was awkward but professional. Meghan regained her composure, answering a few final questions about her upcoming projects. Whoopi thanked her politely, even managing a faint smile. But everyone could feel it. The warmth was gone. Meghan gave a brief wave to the audience and exited the stage with her team closely behind her. Cameras caught the tension in her shoulders as she walked off. Behind the scenes, Meghan reportedly broke down in the dressing room. One of her aides, trying to console her, offered to cancel her next media stop. "No," she said, wiping her eyes. "I'm not hiding. Not again." By that evening, headlines from every major outlet exploded with variations of the same story. Tears on The View. Meghan Markle's emotional clash with Whoopi Goldberg. Meghan breaks down on live TV. Critics say it was long overdue. Was Whoopi too harsh or just honest? In the hours and days that followed, a flood of celebrities, commentators, and fans picked sides. Oprah Winfrey reportedly called Meghan directly to offer support. Serena Williams tweeted, "You don't have to agree with someone to show them kindness." Meghan has endured so much, and still shows up. Others, like Piers Morgan, pounced on the moment. "Bravo, Whoopi," he posted. Finally someone asked the tough questions. Even the co-hosts of The View were reportedly divided. Sunny Hostin was said to be furious about the tone the interview had taken, believing Meghan had been cornered. Anna Navarro defended Whoopi, stating on her Instagram Live, "Whoopi is real. She challenges everyone, not just Meghan. That's what journalism looks like." The internet wasn't done either. Memes exploded. TikToks recreated the scene. Fan pages posted teary-eyed edits of Meghan overlaid with emotional music. Others mocked it, accusing her of playing the victim card again. It wasn't just a moment. It had become a cultural flashpoint, a symbol of everything from racial bias and media ethics to feminism and free speech. 3 days later, Whoopi addressed the incident during the opening segment of The View. "I want to talk about Monday's show," she began. "There's been a lot of noise. Look, I respect Meghan. I really do. But my job, our job, is to ask questions. Even when they're uncomfortable. I didn't mean to make her cry. But I also don't believe in avoiding the hard stuff just because someone's had a rough go. If we start doing that, we stop being honest. And I won't do that. The audience gave a mixed response, some claps, some hesitant silence. Meghan, for her part, released a short statement through her spokesperson. Greater than, Meghan appreciates the opportunity to have honest conversations, even when they're tough. Though the moment on The View was painful, it reflected the very challenges she speaks out about: emotional vulnerability in the face of public scrutiny. She remains committed to creating space for open, respectful dialogue. A week later, Meghan appeared on a podcast hosted by a close friend. There, she reflected quietly. Greater than, I cried not because someone challenged me. I cried because it felt like I was being spoken to, not with, and there's a difference. But I also learned something. You can't control how others speak to you, only how you respond. The moment on The View never fully went away. It lived on in YouTube compilations, think pieces, reaction videos, and college media studies courses. For some, it marked the moment Meghan truly showed vulnerability in a public arena without curation. For others, it was the day Whoopi Goldberg reminded the world that not all interviews are meant to be soft. In the end, they never did a joint appearance again. But in the 20-minute segment, both women, legends in their own right, revealed how complicated, messy, and deeply human public discourse can be.